a terrifying night, and a secret that changed a woman's life forever. In today's horror mystery story, we follow a woman whose world falls apart after the sudden death of her husband. Without any warning, he took his own life, leaving behind nothing but a strange note that made it seem as if he had been terrified of some dark and hidden secret. Ever since his death, Beth had been sinking deeper into loneliness and fear. One night she sat alone in the house, drinking quietly. Suddenly she felt something unsettling. The pillow beside her looked as if someone was still lying on it. It was pressed down, as though an invisible person was resting there. Nervously she reached out to touch it. At that exact moment, loud knocking echoed from the front door downstairs. At first she thought she was imagining it, but then the knocking came again. Terrified, Beth slowly walked downstairs. When she opened the door, no one was there. Then she noticed that a nearby closet door was standing open. Confused and frightened, she tried to make sense of what was happening. Suddenly, the glass door behind her swung open on its own, and for a brief moment, she saw the shadow of a human figure reflected in it. Panicking, she rushed outside. But once again, there was nobody there. The next morning, Beth convinced herself that it had all been nothing more than a nightmare. But then she noticed that the gate leading to the riverbank was wide open. As she walked over to close it, she spotted muddy footprints on the ground. It looked as though someone had climbed out of the river and walked all the way to the house. Following the footprints, Beth made her way toward the river. Then out of nowhere, a gunshot rang out behind her. Startled, she ran to her neighbor's house, but the neighbor firmly denied firing any gun. That night, while sorting through her husband's belongings, Beth discovered a strange blueprint. Her husband had been an architect and had designed the house himself. But on the blueprint, she found several bizarre table-like symbols. Scrawled beside them was a chilling message. "Don't listen to him, he's lying." Assuming it was nothing more than the result of stress and grief, Beth ignored it. Later that night, the house's music system suddenly turned on by itself. The song playing was her husband's favorite. Then her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown sender. As soon as she read it, her blood ran cold. The message had been sent from her dead husband's phone number. With trembling hands, she replied, "Who are you?" A few seconds later, a single message appeared on the screen. "Don't be afraid." Beth immediately called the number. To her horror, the voice that answered sounded exactly like her husband. The voice calmly said, "Look outside the window." Slowly, Beth walked toward the window. Out in the middle of the river stood a naked man. And the most horrifying part, the man was her dead husband. The next instant, Beth woke up screaming. She couldn't tell whether it had been a dream or reality. Desperate for answers, she checked her husband's phone. That's when she discovered a photograph in his gallery. A photo of another woman. But the shocking part was that the woman in the photo looked exactly like her. Beth showed the picture to her friend Claire. But Claire said the same thing. She was convinced the woman in the photo was Beth. However, Beth insisted that she had never worn clothes like that in her life. Now only one question kept running through her mind. Who was the woman in the photograph? Claire tried to comfort her, saying that everyone has dark secrets they keep hidden from the world. Maybe her husband's life had secrets of its own, secrets that were only beginning to surface after his death. Slowly, Beth started to realize that her husband's death wasn't a simple suicide. There was something far more terrifying hidden behind that house, that river, and all the strange events surrounding them. Claire reassured her, saying, "He's gone now, you're safe." But Beth's fear refused to fade. Seeing how shaken she was, Claire drove her home. Trembling with fear, Beth asked her to stay until she fell asleep. Suddenly, a horrifying scream echoed from inside the house. The entire building began to shake violently, as if some unseen force had entered it. Then a deep, terrifying voice echoed from outside. Despite her fear, Beth grabbed a flashlight and stepped outside. What she saw next left her frozen in shock. Several girls dressed in torn, ragged clothes were sprinting toward the river. Without stopping, they leaped straight into the water. Beth stood there in disbelief. Before she could make sense of it, another girl came running and vanished into the river as well. Beth slowly looked ahead and her breath caught in her throat. Where there had been nothing but forest for years, a glowing house now stood in the distance. She couldn't believe her eyes. She had lived there for years. So where did this house suddenly come from? Just then, the same mysterious voice echoed again. It sounded as if something was calling her. Following the voice, Beth made her way to the riverbank. There, she found a small boat. Fresh blood was smeared across it, and lying on top was her husband's shirt. By now, Beth was completely terrified. She was about to run away when red footprints suddenly began appearing on the ground. The footprints moved rapidly toward her. A moment later, she felt someone touch her face. The touch felt exactly like her husband's. Beth slowly reached out with a trembling hand. And then, without warning, an invisible force lifted her off the ground and threw her into the boat. With no one steering it, the boat suddenly begins moving on its own toward the middle of the river. When she opens her eyes, she finds herself on the other side. Right in front of her stands the same glowing house. But the moment she gets closer, a chill runs down her spine. The house looks exactly like her own home, except everything is reversed, like a mirror image. Even the house number on the door appears backward. As she walks through the rooms, she sees different women living inside. Then in one of the rooms, she catches a glimpse of her dead husband. Beth immediately rushes to the door and throws it open. But what she sees inside leaves her completely stunned. Lying on the couch isn't someone else. It's Beth herself. Now she can no longer tell what's a dream and what's real. But one thing is clear. A dark and terrifying secret is hiding behind her husband's death. Determined to uncover the truth, she checks Owen's laptop. Inside, she discovers photos of several unknown women. At that moment, she starts believing that the mysterious mirror house across the lake wasn't just a dream after all. The next day, she returns to the location in search of answers. This time, she finds a broken-down abandoned house. From the outside, it looks completely deserted. But when she reaches an upstairs room, she discovers a terrifying doll covered in needles from head to toe. The creepy doll sends a wave of fear through Beth. She begins to suspect that her husband may have been involved in some kind of dark magic or a dangerous curse. Back at home, she starts digging through Owen's old belongings. That's when she finds several books filled with information about voodoo curses, black magic, and needle dolls. Furious, Beth throws the cursed doll onto the floor, but suddenly a strange creaking sound echoes from the upper floor. The atmosphere instantly becomes even more terrifying. Nervously, she walks upstairs. The moment she steps into the room, her breath catches in her throat. Standing there is the same shadowy figure she saw in her nightmare. But as soon as she moves closer, the shadow suddenly vanishes, like it was never there at all. The next day, Beth visits Owen's old bookstore, hoping to find another clue. There, she meets a young woman, and the shocking part is that she's the same woman whose photo Beth found on Owen's phone. Her name is Madeline, and she works at the bookstore. Madeline reveals that she and Owen once had a relationship of sorts, though nothing too serious. She also tells Beth that Owen had taken her to the mysterious house across the lake, where he gave her a strange needle-filled doll. But one day, everything changed. Owen suddenly became aggressive and grabbed Madeline by the throat. After that terrifying incident, all contact between them came to an end. Hearing all of this, Beth completely falls apart. She can't make sense of who her husband really was. Was he a loving husband or a dangerous psychopath? To uncover the truth, she heads back to the mirror house in the middle of the pouring rain. She searches every corner, but finds nothing that gives her clear answers. Then suddenly she steps on a broken wooden plank, and what she sees beneath it leaves her horrified. Hidden under the floor were several bodies buried in the ground. Wrapped in plastic, they looked as if someone had created a secret graveyard there. Terrified, Beth barely manages to escape and rushes back home. Once there, she decides to take a shower, but the fear hasn't left her. Suddenly, the music system turns on by itself. That same familiar, eerie sound begins echoing through the house once again. Beth realizes that something connected to her husband is still there. She searches the entire house, but no one is around. Then a word suddenly appears on the mirror. Here, slowly approaches the mirror, and as soon as she wipes the word away, the reflection begins to change. For a brief moment, she sees a shadowy figure staring back at her before it vanishes. Then she hears the sound of water dripping behind her. As she turns around, she notices a pair of feet standing in the room. Beth cautiously reaches out and touches them. The moment she does, she realizes she's touching a dead body. Convinced that it might be her husband, she breaks down emotionally and embraces the presence. But then a deep voice whispers something, and the illusion instantly shatters. Suddenly, the door slams shut on its own, trapping her inside the room. As she turns back toward the mirror, she sees a woman standing inside it. At that exact moment, her husband Owen enters the room. Without a second of hesitation, he attacks the woman and smashes her violently into the mirror, killing her instantly. Witnessing this horrifying scene leaves Beth completely traumatized. She tries to run, but an invisible force suddenly grabs her by the throat. In the next moment, she finds herself in a completely different world, the mirror world. Everything there is reversed. The bed, the room, the clock, every single thing looks like a twisted reflection of reality. Several terrified women are hiding nearby when Owen drags another young woman into the room and ties her up. Then the same ghostly shadow appears once again. But this time, it's far more aggressive. Terrified, Beth starts running, but the shadow refuses to let her escape. Instead, it drags her through her husband's darkest secrets, showing her how he had murdered woman after woman. The entire mirror world had been created from the trapped souls of those victims. The mysterious shadow force suddenly throws Beth down a flight of stairs. Groaning in pain, she struggles back to her feet, but when she looks ahead, she's left speechless. Owen is sitting on a couch, but there's another woman in his lap, one who looks exactly like Beth. At that moment, the truth finally becomes clear. This isn't her husband at all. It's the same evil ghostly entity, taking Owen's form and manipulating her all along. Filled with fear, Beth looks at the entity and asks, "What do you want from me?" Just then, the shadow figure begins revealing a horrifying truth from the past. About 17 years earlier, she had been involved in a terrible accident. During that incident, she stopped breathing, and her heart remained dead for nearly 4 minutes. Somehow she managed to cheat death and come back to life. At the time, all she remembered was feeling an overwhelming emptiness. But that emptiness wasn't just a feeling. It was actually an evil spirit that captures the souls of the dead and drags them into hell. However, something went wrong that day. The spirit failed to complete its task because the woman survived. From that moment on, the entity began following her, determined to pull her back into the world of the dead. But it couldn't kill her directly, so it came up with another plan and targeted her husband Owen. The spirit constantly whispered into Owen's mind, trying to convince him to kill his wife. Even though Owen was pushed to his limits, he could never bring himself to do it. He wanted to protect the woman he loved. That's why he came up with the dangerous plan. He designed the house like a maze and built an identical mirror image house across the lake, hoping it would confuse the spirit and keep his wife safe. He also used those cursed needle dolls to lure other women to the mirror house, providing sacrifices for the entity so it would leave his wife alone. But over time, the spirit figured everything out. It realized that Owen had been deceiving it. Now there was no way out. Owen believed that if he ended his own life, his wife might finally be safe. Driven by fear and desperation, he shot himself. But the real horror was only the beginning. The spirit had one terrifying rule. If it couldn't kill someone directly, it could push them towards suicide instead. When Beth returns to the real world, she tries to escape, but the spirit completely takes control of her. Her body becomes trapped, just like one of the cursed needle dolls. Suddenly, 2 moons appear in the sky, one from the real world and one from the mirror world, and the boundaries between the 2 realities begin to merge. A moment later, Beth is dragged back into the mirror dimension. There, the spirit appears once again in the form of Owen and places a gun in her hand. It begins manipulating her. "Your husband's death was your fault. You should join him. It's the right thing to do." Beth is completely broken. But then, at the last possible moment, her friend Claire arrives. The gun in Beth's hand slowly lowers. She finally reaches a decision and stops herself. In that moment, she realizes something important. No matter how painful the truth may be, the people who are gone never come back. But those who are still alive still have a chance to keep living. With that realization, Beth breaks free from the influence of the deadly illusion in the mirror world. She returns to reality. At the same time, Claire jumps into the water to save her and somehow manages to pull her safely back to shore. But the story doesn't end there. Far out on the boat, the same mysterious shadow figure can still be seen. Faint, incomplete, yet carrying a presence that feels disturbingly alive. It's as if the entity is sending one final message, that this game is far from over. And with that chilling image, the screen slowly fades to black. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. Subscribe to this channel for more.